Inspire with Nendrix, the foundation.
Welcome back to Your Best Life with Dr. Hairston, president and founder of Embracing Arms and creator of the brand movement #YourBestLife. It is June. It's June, and you guys, I get excited about a month of June because we get to celebrate our amazing fathers from all over the country. And so we've had an opportunity to interview several fathers prior to today, and I hope you found something really enlightening about some of the discussions that we had. But can you get excited about June? Because I sure am. As a mother of three, two of which are males and fathers, I have grown increasingly interested in the plight of fathers and fatherhood. Watching the challenges that my sons have had to face as paternal parents, and even challenges that I have had to face as a paternal grandmother, really propelled me to wanting to dig in more about the issues with fathers. So research has revealed and pretty much squelched the myths and assumptions about what historically had been believed regarding fathers and their participation or lack thereof, and fathers' influence on the overall development of children. What we do know is that current research supports the realization that our children need their fathers, and the fathers, while non-custodial or not, have played a significant role in the development of our children. Can you get excited about that? In fact, a recent study revealed that Black fathers are more involved with their kids on a daily basis than any other racial groups, and have had a powerful impact on their children's outcomes. However, our fathers will still need support. Resources to support parents have historically been designed with a maternal message, and the marketing of those resources are still created, intentionally or not, to attract the mother, and that is something that must be changed. This is part 5 of a series of conversations that I have been having with fathers all over the country to discuss fatherhood, obstacles, their reflection on Black Lives Matters, and parenting in the 21st century. My 5th guest today is Dr. Samuel G. Roberson. He is a professor of higher education in Georgia. He's also an entrepreneur. He's the father of 4 brilliant children, one of which I had the pleasure of watching perform with Beyonce on tour, as well as Coachella. Welcome, Dr. Roberson, and thank you for taking the time to be a part of our fatherhood series, My Father, A Conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. I appreciate you and the opportunity to be here.
Awesome. So, we go way back, right? Way back, like chicken fed. And we've had such a wonderful opportunity to bond at work and even, out in the community. And so every time we come together, we have some amazing conversations. So I'm just so grateful that you were able to carve out some time in your busy schedule to talk to me today. So for those, I know you well, but for those who don't know you as well as I do, can you just take a couple minutes to introduce yourself to our viewers and tell them why focusing on fatherhood is important to you?
Well, I am the son of a sharecropper in the south of Mississippi. I tell people I was born in Mississippi, but raised in San Francisco, California, a very liberal city where I had an opportunity to see quite a bit as a child. But my parents brought an upbringing from the South with them to California. But I was raised in the inner city of San Francisco. I was termed a gifted and talented student in the 6th grade. This was the beginning of what they call segregation, desegregation, in which we were bused around the city to be with other kids. Research at that time, I've come to learn in my graduate school studies, suggested that if you plan for it, the integration, it just doesn't happen. It's something that you just got to push them together and it will work itself out. But I rejected being gifted. I felt like I was a mice in an experiment, and I went through some issues with that, you might say, and it was around the time that I was in the 8th grade that a counselor had brought me into owning my intelligence a little bit, and my struggles and growing up in poverty, single parent mom, middle school through high school. I just learned that there was a picture of a cat clinging to a rope, and it says, when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. And for me at age 13, that was a turnaround for me where I began to own being young, gifted, and Black. That being said, I finally grew as an adult, played some football in college, had the fortunate opportunity to be a scholar athlete, and had a career with an insurance company, and hit a point in my life where I felt like my life needed to be a little bit more purpose driven. Went back to graduate school, earned my master's in youth development, my PhD in recreation, parks, and tourism sciences at Texas A&M University. And I had an opportunity to work with you at Prairie View University in the extension program, where we did quite a bit of outreach to the community, particularly historically underrepresented groups. And I've landed now as a professor at Claflin University, a small HBCU, ranked 7th amongst HBCUs in South Carolina, where I've had an opportunity to have an affect and hopefully some long-term effect on the lives of some young adults that are coming out into the world. I'm a professor, and then I do some consulting work as a consultant and some inspirational speaking.
Wonderful. Well, I definitely know that, your new university, Clapton, is blessed to have.
Good word for it.
Because, we missed it. We lost a pearl when you left Prairie View, and we don't know what we're losing until it's gone. And so, that's a wonderful move for you, and we're excited about that.
As you mentioned, I have 4 children. The oldest was a son, and I have 3 daughters. And in 2017, we lost a son. That's been part of the parenting that you might say that we've had to navigate. A son who, as with our other children, led a very productive life through, hopefully, prayerfully, the parenting that we've provided them. And as my kids would say, I've been a father to probably a lot of kids. That's what comes with the responsibility of coaching. But very thankful for all of our children in the 34 years, that blessed life that Sam Jr. had.
Awesome. But definitely rest in peace, Sam Jr. I had a pleasure of having some exposure to him and his amazing work that he did. He was an artist in his own right and well respected. And so thank you for sharing that message with us. You
talk, a Howard graduate.
And a Howard, we cannot forget the real HU, right?
There you go.
Cannot forget that. So that's wonderful. You talked a little bit earlier about growing up in, a single family home or single mother, home early in your elementary years. And so, which makes it difficult for especially young boys, kind of growing up in those spaces. And I'm wondering, given that experience, what do you believe was your earliest memory of an ideal father? And how does that influence your parenting today?
Well, for me, single parent mom started in middle school through high school. And my father was in the household through elementary and about halfway through middle school. And they separated, and we continued to, do well, so to speak. And that's about that time where, I was dealing with that frustration. For me, ideal fatherhood was probably something that came on TV. And even though my parents were separated, my father was present in my life. And so what I didn't get from him all the time was time with a dad, time out there with me, throwing the ball with me. But he was certainly proud of me. And I got some quality out of the time that I was with him. And I also, my learning style is that I learn from people who do good and people who do bad. I learn from their right and wrongs. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my father's wrongs taught me what was right. Mm-hmm. Rather than saying, I'm going to be like him, I'm going to repeat the cycle, or that, you know, I'm going to become that same person. A lot of what he didn't do or didn't do well learned me, so to speak. Nevertheless, kidfully, there was a show called Family Affairs, probably the earliest memory of a father. A white guy had a kid named, I think, Jody and Buffy or something like that. But he spent time talking to them. He likewise was away. He had a butler. There was no mother in the household. But he could talk his kids through lessons, so to speak. And probably more of a role model father didn't come until the latter stages of when I was coming out of college, and Bill Cosby. And Bill Cosby kind of brought a package of an semblance of different dads that I had seen periodically, right? And I just felt like the full package was not around, but I saw pieces, and I was able to pick up pieces and made a choice when I became a young dad at 20 that I wanted to be the better pieces. I got faults, but I've done a better job of being more of the better pieces, so to speak. But Bill Cosby had a combination of, you know, he was firm, but he talked to his kids. He spanked them through lectures. And, you know, lectures hurt because you have to listen. You can't go nowhere. And you start with the spankings early, and then realize that as long as he's talking, I ain't getting hit, right? I ain't getting whipped. So my kids have endured some lectures, you might say. And I mean, I so deep and I pierce them with what they've done wrong, but I'm quick to have them recover. But my father was very affectionate with me. He was firm. I wouldn't say he was strict. He was firm about some stuff. He was principled, and he afforded me and my brother a lot of freedom. And we didn't abuse that. But I would say, you know, Bill Cosby came when I was in my 20s, where I seen a package of a father. Otherwise, I saw pieces of a father or pieces of parenthood.
Right. That's so interesting, because one of my strategies with my, you know, raising boys, raising 3 kids, two boys and a girl, was lecturing the heck out of them. And my boys will probably tell you today, I would rather get a whooping than to hear this, because this is just
get it over with.
But it does capture them. So there is growing evidence that boys raised in households without a father, you know, figure in this space, fare worse in behavior, academics, and earnings. And one reason that, according to some of the economists, is that they do not see men taking on life's responsibilities. And so, you know, the biggest push is putting good men in the space of our sons, right? So if it's, you know, something visually that you're seeing on TV through, you know, Family Matters, or through, you know, watching Bill Cosby, you know, and his shows, or you know, or your parents actually physically putting you around really great role models and men in your community, that has shown to have the greatest impact on our young boys' outcome when there's not a father in the home steady, or a father missing altogether. But the other thing is also giving them strong female role models to see and to watch, according to some of the New York Times articles that I've read. So what are your thoughts about this statement that women cannot raise boys to be men?
In my adulthood, I've kept, you know, dealt with that thought, and I firmly have stood on the side of, I don't buy into that women, mothers cannot raise their children. Now, you know, I don't think mothers necessarily have to be fathers, but I think in parenting, there are paternal and maternal traits, so to speak, and it's possible for a man to have some maternal traits, right? Some men, you know, not the stereotype, but, you know, cooking, cleaning is their thing in that household, and or they were taught very well, and they can teach those things. The male may not be an athletic jock, but the wife, the mom is a jock, and so she's out there throwing the baseball and that sort of thing. So what I'm saying is, I guess androgynous is the word. I think parenting in some fashions are androgynous in that there are skill sets that are being employed on their children. And so that can come from a mother or father. Again, I've seen a lot of kids that grew up in households, the majority of the households where I grew up, again, we're the era of those who the mothers benefited from AFDC or welfare system. And that system did its part in moving the males outside of the household. And I know a lot of kids who grew up and have done well and have become productive citizens. And so, again, I'm in youth development, where my study is that, there's this relationship-based programming, or the concept of a significant other adult in the lives of children. And I think whether you're a father or a mother, it's imperative that we find ways to bring supportive other adults into our children's lives. So as a single parent father, as you just noted, likewise to bring constructive, positive female role models into my child's life, not just males, and vice versa. I'm saying that mothers can do that. And that don't have to be, Uncle John #1. Oh, that was him 2 weeks ago. This is Uncle John #2. Call him Uncle. It doesn't have to be the boyfriend.
Right.
It can be coaches in the community. I was reared by coaches. Had an impact, members in the church, someone at the school who your child takes a significant interest in. It's very difficult to get men role models in elementaries. And that's something I know the school systems are working on, but certainly by the time they get to middle school and the boys are feeling themselves, making sure that you encourage your sons to get attached to a male role model. So, family members, uncles, any positive, constructive father figure type role model. And so as my children would say, and other athletes that I've coached would say that, you've been a father figure to a number of people, and I applaud my family for lending that part of me out to other people, because that time I spent was time that I didn't spend with them. And so I've learned to sow quality time, not necessarily the amount of time that's in my children, but the time that I do have, I try for it to be quality. So I think moms can raise their children. They can expose them to constructive, positive, male and female adults to help raise productive adult citizens and prepare their children to be, again, productive adults.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful answer. And that's some of the things that I've noticed some of our parents sometimes struggle with, like how do we identify good people to put in front of, because everyone defines a good person a little different than someone else, but really trying to encourage our parents to make sure that even if they're living in a single parent's household, that there are good, folks that they can surround their children with, so they can see adults taking full adult responsibilities outside of just their mother, the one that's the primary caretaker, but see it demonstrated in other ways. I also read an article in this website called Anxiety and Depression, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, which addressed parenting and being good enough during this time. We're dealing with a lot of issues, social justice issues, the COVID crisis. And so this article is talking about being good enough. And it shares that if you are parenting without another adult to share the responsibility, you should try to create time for you to be alone and debrief. And that it's okay, unless your children are really young, to find that time to kind of get away, step away, go into another space so that you can have your alone time. And that this is necessary, a necessary time to preserve your privacy for everyone. And it's okay to insist that happens, right? And so we know that our families are facing some added challenges with COVID-19 and social distancing in a way that we had not faced before. And so it's really put a lot of pressure on our parents. As a father, what is the one thing that you hope that your children learn from your parenting through crisis also, and also carry it into their own parenting?
Well, the one thing that has been a strength for me is that this concept of being able to balance, loving affection and firmness, right? meaning I think it's important that as parents, we have to serve as providing a moral governor.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, and even as a parent, quite often we speak into existence to, do something right. And in the back of our mind, we hear this voice saying, "Oh, Sam, that's what you did when you was young. I did wrong." Regardless of whether I did wrong, it's important for me to speak into existence, doing the right thing, a better moral governor. My son was clearly a better man than me. I know that at 34, he was a better man than me. And because I spoke the better part of me as much as I could in him, I tried to model the better part of me as much as I could into him. And I think it's important that, there's some firmness of a moral governor, but there's that loving and affection that's required. And meaning that love and affection has to be unconditional, that, there has to be a consistency. And so when I talk about somebody like Bill Cosby, whether a kid has done something right or good, he still comes with his humor. He still comes with a story. He still teaches a lesson. He comes out of it by building that child up to be better. He doesn't break them down and leave them down, so to speak. So I think if you come in your heart with, that I'm bringing love and affection unconditionally to my children, then telling them that they can tell you about anything means they can tell you about anything. You'll never get everything. Kids just don't say, "Mom, I'm thinking about having sex," and
something you might not want to know.
yeah. You like, "Wait, hold on. Talk to your auntie about that. Talk to your mom about that." "No, Dad, I really want to talk to you because you're cool and I can really talk to
you."
And he, we was talking right. So we're never going to know everything. That's why they have a peer group, and that's why they have significant others, adults in their life. Because, as a professor, I got stuff that come to my desk, Lord have mercy, that I know my daughter wouldn't come to me with. But I say to myself, I hope there's somebody out there that she can go to. Now, my kids will come with a lot. Right. And I mean, that's that unconditional. And when that bad news comes, we should be able to somehow process that back to, so what's constructive from this? You've made this mistake, but what's constructive in this? I've been the juvenile. I've been arrested. I made the choice not to get arrested again. And so I try to pass that trait on to them. I mean, we make mistakes, but we learn from our mistakes and we move on. So being able to balance that firmness with that love and affection. And what my father did in a short period of time, he loved me, he touched me, he rubbed my head, told me forehead how proud he was of me, kissed me on my lips. And at the same time, when I did wrong, he said, "Go get me a switch." He had a conversation about it, and I learned to have a different conversation. And I teach whipping, y'all. You got to whip 2 times, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you hit yourself. Mama's, "Oh, don't kill my baby." The other sibling who didn't do wrong is saying, "I don't want that whooping." And the one that's getting whooped is still feeling like it's hurting. But the reality is, I popped you twice, and I popped you about 8 times and hit my own hand. So when I say, as a parent, that hurt me more than it hurt you to whoop you, I mean it.
Right. Because you're whipping.
I know how to whip. I know half the majority of my spankings be dramatic. Oh, boy, girl.
That's hilarious. I love it.
My whole self.
That's hilarious.
But never leave your kids down. Always have the build up. And even in coaching, we had a philosophy: if I break them down, my assistant coach came behind me and built them up. And if he broke them down, then I would come behind him and build them up. And then we would come back and revisit to say, you good? We good? So staying good, I call it staying current, even from a relational standpoint, is important.
Wonderful. Well, that seems to be, again, a theme. Every time I talk to fathers, one of the things that they always seem to talk about is what I'm hoping that my child learned from me is to have open communication. What I hope that my child learned from me is to be loving and affectionate, you know, to your children, and to be stern and consistent with how you discipline them, how you redirect their behavior, because that's going to be key to their overall ability to grow and thrive, you know, past, you know, being cared for by their parent, going into corporate America, and being consistent in their own messaging and the way they not only handle their children, but how they handle working with people in various environments. So thank you for sharing that.
If I can add a comment, too often I've seen parents, particularly young parents when I was young and even now, that when they're absentee in their child's life, meaning they're not around them all the time, when they do get around them, they're either overly a disciplinarian, right? It's so important to them, since I'm not around you, I need to make sure you listen to me. And they're just overly strict, or they're overly gifters, right? They're consistently gifting. So when you're around me, well, the way I make up for lost time is I gift you and I gift you. You know, you get new shoes when you come around me. You get a new outfit when you come around me. As opposed to, again, fatherhood is work.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta sow some quality conversations and times that will stick. I use it, you know, I call it soul food, that when they're away from me and situations happen, it sticks with them like soul food. Mm-hmm. It's memorable to their ribs, right? So when I teach students, I serve soul food, because I'm expecting, I tell them, when you're going to hit 31 and you're going to be like, you know what? I remember Dr. Roberson. You may not remember exactly what I said, but I remember him saying something like that. It's going to come back to you. So you may think you're listening to today, or you may think you're not listening, but I got something stuck on your ribs. Absolutely. and it's going to serve you well later, because you may not fully understand it today. So I just encourage parents not to feel like they got to be overly disciplinarian. There's no win in the fight between me and a 4-year-old. I can win that fight, you know.
I love it.
You smarter than a second grader? No, but I know how to knock a second grader out, a fourth grader out. There's no win in that. The win is, how do you take the situation and grow them
right
from it, right? But to just say, sit down and just be strict the whole time, because I'm gonna show you that you don't just act any old kind of way around me like you get away with your mom.
Right.
It takes work. It's a balance. It's not how well you can plantationize, you know, I got a PhD, I come up with a word, child. Plantationize your child, right?
Right.
Or spoil them and try to give them everything that someone else has. Mm-hmm. Either way, those are outliers that somehow you're going to miss the value of the in-between.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Well, you know, again, hopefully we'll be able to kind of chop this up some more, because we always share some really valuable messaging. We'll kind of come up with these pearls as we're talking. And so, you know, a few minutes on our YouTube page is never enough to really deep dive into some of the issues. But this is the part of our interview where we do the lightning questions. So this is the lightning round time. Where we give you 20 seconds, and I'm going to either give you a question or a statement, and you respond within 4 seconds. You only have 4 seconds to respond to each one of these statements. And I have 5 statements or questions for you. So this is the lightning round. Are you ready for this lightning round?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Number 1, ear piercing in babies and toddlers.
Not.
All right. Competition versus everyone gets a trophy.
Every child should learn to lose.
Awesome. Infant immunization.
Say it again.
Infant immunization, immunizing infants.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Spanking versus timeouts.
You have got to spank early so that you don't have to spank later.
And paying children to do chores.
It's my money and I want it back. Pamela, if you're going to put it in envelopes and teach them to save and money management.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Roberson, again, for giving me your time today. It is always, always a pleasure to have you join us. And hopefully you'll be able to come back and talk to us again in the future. And I also want to thank our viewers and our listeners that have come back time and time again every week to listen to our fathers and really engage in some dialogue. I've been receiving some amazing messages in my inbox around, your thoughts and feelings about some of the messages that our fathers had been sharing over the past couple of weeks. If there was something that you heard today that energized you or triggered additional questions, please remember to comment below, like, share, and subscribe, and join us again as we embark into our July series, talking to recent college graduates. Happy Father's Day month again to all of our amazing fathers all over the country. And please remember to go into your community and embrace someone. They are waiting for you. Continue to live your absolute best life.
Hi, Embracing Arms community. My name is Dr. Samuel G. Roberson Sr., and I am a professor and entrepreneur living out of the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I'm stepping by today to remind you all to live your best life.
Inspire with Nendrix. The foundation. My La Casa boy, this is my residence. My prescription boy, this is my medicine. The world can be sickening, living in house resemblance. Not to mention the media's effort to keep us in the most simplistic state of mind. Lowest age bracket committing the highest